Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Football Friday. Paul Fiore here. Thank you for tuning in. Please click like and subscribe. Today, we're going to do something different, a new channel. So small little baby channel. Appreciate anyone and everyone supporting it. But today I thought maybe we'll start doing something. I know it's late in the season, but I think it might be fun to do a kind of a rundown on the week, the games this week, and make some predictions, and then give you, I'm going to call my Fiore Four, which would be my best bets. I think we'll do this the last 4 weeks of the season into the playoffs, and it'll be fun. And we can go from there. But before we start that, let's talk a little bit. This is a Jets channel, so we can talk some Jets news. The Jets did sign Josh Myers to an extension, 2 years, $11 million, $6 million guaranteed. I think when you look at Josh Myers, he is a adequate starter in the NFL. Certainly not an elite player. I think he's a league average center. I know PFF grades him out a little bit low. PFF is one of those challenging things to me. I don't necessarily use that as gospel. The eye test to me says Myers has been competent. Could they upgrade that position? Sure. Does signing him to a $6 million guaranteed contract preclude them from upgrading? No. It just gives them the flexibility to know that at the worst, they have 4 of their 5 starters coming back next year. And on a team like the Jets, with all the holes they have, the offensive line is a position group of relative strength and consistency. So hats off to Muji for making that move. What does it mean overall for 2026? TBD. John Simpson and AVT are both free agents. Pittman has proven he's a very good right guard. He's also a very good center. So I think you still have that position flexibility. So what could happen? Well, let's run through the scenarios. And I think all of them have their strengths, their positives and negatives. But you could re-sign AVT to a prove-it deal and then draft either a center or guard in the 3rd or 4th round who can develop. Let Simpson go. AVT's got the higher ceiling, probably lower floor because of injury history. But, if he's willing to sign a 1-year prove-it deal, and Simpson maybe prices himself out of the market because, he may get more money than they're willing to pay. You wind up in a scenario where, AVT would be one of your guards. Pittman can play guard, or if they, and Myers can start at center, or they draft a guard or a center. Well, they draft a guard, let's say, who turns out to be really, develops into a really good player. You can slide Pittman back to center and Myers as your backup. Or you sign Simpson and you have your same starting 5 for 2026, and you draft a development guy at guard or center to sit behind. So good move by the Jets. These are the kind of things you like to see with a new GM, where he's making proactive decisions before you wind up in a situation where you're bidding against others. Myers has been one of those good low risk signings that has worked out. And so we'll go from there. But that's it. As far as the Jets, we can talk. Let's go right into the games this week. We have Jets at Jags. These lines are pulled off of ESPN.com. So, we'll use that. But Jags are 13.5-point favorites this week. Jets are going to be starting Brady Cook. I don't know for 100% certainty but he's been taking all the snaps. And yesterday, from what I read, him and Adrian Martinez were the only 2 quarterbacks that were actually participating in practice. So he's going to start. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence, has been playing pretty well lately. This is such a bad matchup for the Jets. Even if Tyrod was healthy, this line probably would still be 11.5. Jags are playing good football. They turn the ball. They force turnovers. the Jets don't create any turnovers, and with a rookie quarterback who has shown the desire to push the ball downfield, there's a good chance that we will be losing the turnover battle in this game. Breece Hall was on the injury report earlier in the week. He did practice yesterday, but will he get a full workload? I'm not sure. I think this is one of those games where we're going to watch very much like a preseason football game for the Jets. There's going to be, a lot of replacement younger players playing on the road in Jacksonville. Even though it's 13.5 points, which is a massive line in the NFL, but there's a lot of those now because there's so many bad football teams. I'm taking the Jags in that game. I think you lay the 13.5. I think the Jags offense is going to light us up. And you know what? For those of us who want better draft capital, that's a good thing. Next game, Bills at Patriots. This is an interesting game for a couple of reasons. The Bills aren't the Bills as they've been historically. I know they won a great game last week against Cincinnati at home in the snow. Josh Allen has been very, very good. His weapons are not. They are not. He's playing with a diminished team in my mind relative to what his talent should. His weapons aren't what they should be for a guy as talented and as great as he is. The Bills' window might be closing, but I don't think it's closed. The Patriots have been everything that all of us as Jet fans who wanted Mike Vrabel, as the head coach have become. In fact, the Patriots are an amazing blueprint for what I'm hoping the Jets do, which is go get your young quarterback and then use all of that capital you have, because you have a ton of draft capital, even if you trade up, and you have a ton of cap space to go out and build out your roster. The Patriots did that this offseason, and they have a really strong head coach, and May has been fantastic. Patriots are 1.5-point dog, though, for a reason. Their schedule this year has been really light. And so what do you do with a game like this? I have a feeling it's just an odd one, but I get the sense that the Bills are going to go into New England and win that game. So I would take the Bills, even though they are a slight favorite. I actually think the Bills win that game. Ravens at Bengals. I mean, two extremely flawed teams, probably two of the most disappointing teams in the league this year. I think the Ravens, I know the Ravens play the Steelers at the end of the season, and a lot of people think that's going to decide the division. I'm actually not one of those people. I think the Ravens are going to struggle here in these next 3 games. They're a game under 500. Lamar looked better last week, but and I know the Bengals defense is historically atrocious. I like the Bengals. I think the Bengals can win this game at home. I think they're going to put up a bunch of points. I do not like the Ravens defense, and ultimately, I'm just not. I'm not a believer in the Ravens at all. And going on the road, they're under 500. Why I should think they're going to go win that game? So I'm taking the Bengals plus 2.5. Chargers Chiefs. This is an odd one to me. I know KC is a tough place to play, but KC being 5.5-point favorites to the Chargers, who are having the better season, and our playoff team versus a team that's the Chiefs lose this week, they're done. I mean, maybe that's the line is the Chiefs are desperate, and so this is a win or go home game for them. But man, I mean, maybe the Chargers don't win this football game, but to think that they're not going to keep it within 5.5, I love the Chargers in this game. I think it's a flawed line. Browns at Bears. Bears 7.5-point favorites. Bears have played a lot of really good football this year. Ultimately Caleb has been improved, and I think Ben Johnson is showing, why everyone thought he'd be a good head coach. Um, the Browns are a bit of a mess. Will Kevin Stefanski come back next year or not? It's an interesting question. Clearly, Stefanski was not a Shador fan, at least up until the last couple of weeks. He'd been resisting playing him. He relegated him to the third QB behind Gabriel, who clearly is not an NFL quarterback. He doesn't have the physical traits. He does not possess any one skill set in my mind that makes him a starting quarterback in the NFL. If anything, he's a fringe backup quarterback. But yet they started him over Shador. Shador, obviously he's got the baggage because of, being Shador. Flashy, the entourage and all that stuff coming into the league. And I'll be the first to say, I did not want the Jets to do anything to get him. Even though we needed the quarterback, I thought that his aura, personality, all that stuff would not have fit under an Aaron Glenn-led team. With that said, Shador's done a lot of really good things last couple of weeks. Last week he looked really good. And if Stefanski didn't brainlessly go for two, the first time he went for two, when they had just scored a touchdown to get within 8, made no sense to go for 2 to go down 6. We may have looked at a game where the Browns might have won that game. They still have a really strong defense, but they're on the road. I think the weather forecast has it being absolutely brutally cold. So I actually think it's probably going to be a lower scoring game. I think the Bears win the game. Will they cover 7.5? Give me the Browns getting 7.5, because I think I like what I've seen from Shador in their offense, and I think they could run the ball. Commanders at Giants. The battle of two terrible football teams, and somehow, the Giants have taken the lead in the New York market on dysfunction this season, with firing their head coach, firing their OC. I mean, they've had their DC. They've had lots of issues. They do have hope with Jackson Dart, who's looked the part. He makes some stupid mistakes and is careless and puts himself in harm's way. Giants at home, they're coming off of a blowout loss to New England. The Commanders, Mariota will be starting. Jaden Daniels probably should not play the rest of the season. It doesn't make any sense why he would play. It's a toss-up game to me. I think Mariota is a serviceable starter. I think the Giants' defense is absolutely brutal. But, and it's a division game. So I think for me, this is a 50-50 game. I certainly wouldn't, it wouldn't be a game that I would pick in any, parlay or anything like that. But like, for me, I would say, I'm going to take the Commanders getting 2.5. Raiders at Eagles. The Kenny Pickett start that, I think that's a good thing. If as a Jet fan, I actually think Kenny Pickett starting gives them a better chance to win than Geno. And then everyone's like, well, Kenny Pickett sucks. I don't, I'm not disagreeing in that argument, but Kenny Pickett is healthier. He's more mobile. And I think Geno is a washed, beat-up quarterback. He's taken a beating this year behind that offensive line. He's thrown tons of interceptions. I think that his mindset and attitude is awful. I think that if you just look at how his relationship is with the fan base, it's terrible. Raiders at Eagles, they're getting 11.5. It's a massive spread. Eagles are home coming off a really bad game. Hurts was awful last week. They're a bit dysfunctional. they've been dysfunctional for a few years and they won the Super Bowl, which is it's a funny thing when you think about it. But they're just not a cohesive team. So, you're giving 11 and a half points, but the Raiders are awful. Awful. I want to take the 11 and a half just because I have a rooting interest for the Raiders. But my football brain tells me the Eagles are going to come out angry and blow the doors off the Raiders. So I'm going to take the Eagles minus 11 and a half. Cardinals at Texans. Cardinals on a massive losing streak now. Bad football team. Oh, I have a typo. 9,5. Cardinals at Texans. Texans really one of the best defenses in the league. They've led with that all year. I think that Stroud has not been Stroud in the way people view him. This is, I think, the second year in a row that I think he's not progressed to the level that people would thought he would be. Now they may have, they have their own issues on offense. That's not just related to him, but 9.5 points is a lot, and I think Brissett is a capable starter. I can't take 9.5, so I'm going to take the Cardinals plus 9.5 in that game. Packers at Broncos. The Broncos are an interesting football team in that they are competing with New England for the, they're looking for potentially the number one spot. And yet they've had games like against the Jets and the Giants where they should have lost and miraculously won. Team with excellent defense, Bo Nix. He showed a lot of flashes towards the end of last year that made you think this guy could become, a top 15 QB in the league. I think this year he's been middling at best. He's had moments where he's looked really good, but I would say the Broncos are the team to take in this matchup, mainly because of the playing at home and their defense is stellar. And look, the Packers are a very good football team coming off of a nice game last past week. And, Jordan Love, he's still super erratic to me as a quarterback. There are moments in games where I watch him and I'm like, man, what bad decision-making sometimes. And there are games where I think they're going to put up a bunch of points and they don't. Then they'll have games against Detroit where he goes crazy. It's a little bit schizophrenic to me. If this game was in Green Bay, I would take Green Bay, but at Mile High, at home with that defense that shows up every week, I'm going Broncos plus 2.5. Lions at Rams. The Lions are a team that are showing losing Ben Johnson, losing Aaron Glenn, leaning into Dan Campbell as the old, as kind of like he's calling plays on offense because he took the plays away from their OC. You wonder if the Lions window was last year, and if they're in not that they can't be a good football team, playoff team, but I think that they are a fringe playoff team this year. I think when you look at their last 4 games, I think the Lions, there's a real chance that they don't make the playoffs. And the Rams are a wagon, right? Like you look at the Rams, they're one of those teams like they just score in bunches. And Stafford is an MVP, having an MVP season. I think he's the MVP personally. I know that there's a lot of conversation around May, but I love what the Rams are doing. I think they have a massive advantage in the head coach with McVay. I think they've got a ton of weapons. They look like a team that could and should potentially be the Super Bowl favorite. Rams at home, less than a touchdown favorite. I'm taking the Rams. Panthers at Saints. I know the Panthers are having a nice year. They're over 500. They've had some nice signature wins this season, and there's been some growth at the quarterback position with Young. But they have plenty of games where you look and they go, wow, they like, look at the game against the Jets. The Panthers should have lost that game. The Jets had at least an NFL starting caliber quarterback that would have won that football game. Panthers going on the road to New Orleans, who's playing pretty good football right now. I mean, they just came off of a nice road win against Tampa. I am a shock believer. I think the kid is a very talented mobile quarterback who, as a Jet fan, hopes that he continues to develop and makes them believe they can go into next year with him as the starting QB. I think they've got some needs in the weapons department, but Saints getting 2.5 points at home, I think they win the football game. I'm taking the Saints. Titans at Niners. I mean, one of the biggest mismatches of the week, probably second to the Jets and Jags. Titans are a bad football team. I know they won last week, but they're a bad football team. Going on the road, cross country to the Niners. Niners are really good, getting healthier. I'm taking the Niners covering the 12.5. I've seen plenty of games where the Titans are just non-competitive. I think this will be one of those games. Colts at Seahawks. Seahawks 13.5-point favorites. Every indication is the Colts are going to start 44-year-old Phillip Rivers in this game. Let's just assume Phillip Rivers wasn't the quarterback and Daniel Jones was the quarterback. I mean, the Seahawks would probably be 10.5-point favorites in this game. Seahawks are, like the Rams, just a juggernaut on offense. I mean, they score points in bunches. I think the Colts are on a downward spiral. It's a great, fun story that Rivers is going to play. He looks out of shape to me. Not surprising. The guy hasn't played in 5 years. He looks a little bit thicker than I remember him in his last few years of playing. Can they protect him? Give him time to throw? What's his arm strength like? He never was the strongest armed quarterback. 13.5 is a massive spread. I'm gonna take the Colts getting 13.5 just purely on the story, and maybe Rivers gives them some juice. Logically, I can see the Seahawks completely demolishing them, but I'll take the. I would not touch this game if it's not in my picks. But give me the 13.5 points. Just too much. If I was taking it, I'd probably buy a point, go to 14.5. But that's just my view. Vikings at Cowboys. Vikings coming off of a pretty decisive victory last week. I'm not a J.J. McCarthy guy. Wasn't when they drafted him. I get that they believe he can become the guy, and who's to argue with what O'Connell's done with other quarterbacks in the past. But I think this is a development season for him going at Dallas, who I think is still a live body at this point. And I think Dak can put up a ton of points, and I'm not impressed with the Vikings defense at all this year. I'm going to take the Cowboys -5.5. And then the Monday night game is when it all comes crashing down for the Dolphins and their fringe playoff hopes, and they can join us miserable Jet fans watching and still waiting. All the Dolphin fans who love to talk trash to the Jet fan and our 15-year playoff drought. When was the last time you won a playoff game, Dolphins fans? You have a longer drought than the Jets when it comes to winning a playoff game. So it's like two terrible teams talking trash to each other is funny. With that said, the Dolphins blew the doors off the Jets last week. Just goes to show you how bad the Jets are right now. But man, I think the Steelers, Steelers are a playoff team. They're going to win their division. If Rodgers can stay healthy like he looked last week, And I don't think the Dolphins are gonna get to him. I think he moved around really well last week, probably the best he's looked since the beginning of the season when he played the Jets. I think the Steelers are going to cover the 3 points. I like them a lot in that game. Now, the 4 games that I love the most this week are 3 dogs and a home favorite. But just think about the way the NFL has been this year. It's been a year that anything and everything can happen because the parity in the league is wide, and even terrible football teams occasionally find a way to win a game. Last night, the Falcons. I went to bed. I was like, they're down 2 touchdowns. I'm going to bed early. I wake up, they win that game. I mean, now granted, Todd Bowles special, right? His defense has a tendency to do this. And evidently his post game was epic, where he just dropped F-bomb after F-bomb. But my point is, anything can happen in the NFL. And so when I look at this and I go, okay, the Chargers are on the road getting 5.5 points. I'm taking the Chargers getting the 5.5 points. I think they can win that game outright. I think Kansas City is in a lot of trouble. Broncos at home getting 2.5. I know Green Bay is a good football team. The Broncos just win, and they may not win pretty, but that defense shows up and shows out. And at home, I think that they're going to give Love problems. I think Nix is good enough to do what he needs to do. So give me the Broncos plus 2.5. Rams, a wagon at home -6. Love the Rams this week. And then lastly, I'm just not a believer that the Panthers are good enough yet to say we're going to go on the road and make them the road favorite with a team that I think right now is playing hard and good football. I would take the Saints getting 2.5. So we can revisit this after the Jets-Jags game when I record and see how I did for the entirety of the slate, but also for these 4. I'm going to call these my Fiore Four. We'll do this the remainder of the season. Chargers plus 5.5, Broncos plus 2.5, Rams giving 6, and the Saints plus 2.5. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Please click like and subscribe, and I will see you all soon.